Hey, so I had a conversation this weekend with an old buddy of mine I've known forever. Saturday afternoon, 4 o'clock, I call him up just to see what he's up to, and he's working. So I said, "Work? It's Saturday afternoon."
Right.
And basically, he works for a large multinational financial services and lender, and he does appraisal reviews for him. So what he was doing was he was working overtime, doing the appraisal reviews because they're bringing in additional contractors in addition to employees like him to start to address and feel the spike in foreclosures that they're starting to see now.
Wow.
So the first thing I thought of was, okay, so you have foreclosures spiking. I was under the impression that there was a moratorium in place and that it had been extended to June 30th. Now, if that's the case, how do you reconcile the two right here?
But again, if they started that process prior to March, I think it was 20th of last year, then they could still move forward. There has been a bottleneck without a doubt, but they're only, I think what they're talking about with the moratorium are government-backed loans. You're talking FHA, CHFA, VA, loans. Otherwise, you can move forward with that process. The problem is with the court system, there's been a bottleneck anyway. So how do you get any of this done when there's kind of a stalemate with the courts? So, my bigger issue with this is the eviction process, because you're talking foreclosures, you're talking about those owners. I'm just as concerned with the number of people that are renting. I'm concerned for homelessness. There are 200,000, I don't want to say people, I want to say units, I believe, in the state of Connecticut that are in jeopardy of being evicted right now. So that number is scary, because what do you do with these people?
Yeah,
These are
that,
lives. These are real people.
yeah, absolutely. It's terrifying to think of because especially you wake up in a morning like this, it's 17 degrees outside. It's freezing. The prospect of people being thrown out is really scary. So, and to be clear, the spike in foreclosures that we're talking about is national. So he does appraisal reviews across the country. So we're not talking about just Connecticut. It's the entire nation. So that does change the scope of this a little bit.
So he's seeing them. Has he seen anything like this recently, or is this something new? Is it?
Uh, he's been working for this company for over 10 years. And this kind of dates back to the last time we saw this issue, which was 2008, where you had people literally just dropping the keys and walking away because they're underwater so far that they had no chance.
Where do you go now? Where do you go? That's my issue. Like, where do you, even if you give up, you give the keys away, where do you go?
The in-laws, anywhere you can. I mean, again, it's warmer climates. Again, good question. Where do you go? To me, you look at now. You're talking about the making the difference between federally backed loans that the moratorium actually applies to, so people are safeguarded until June 30th. But for the lenders, now they have the bigger question of, what do we do here? Okay, a lot of them put a 12-month cap on the moratorium, so they'll float them for a year, and then after that, they reserve the right to either take it back, but when do they get to a conversation internally where they say, do we want to really rack up all these REOs, all these bank-owned properties, and be sitting on them? The last thing the banks want to do is be owning a bunch of real estate.
Yeah, and sometimes it makes sense just to have that tenant or that owner, even if they're not paying, in place, because they're somewhat maintaining that property, keeping the heat on, and making sure that it is still a functional property. It's almost like having a built-in property manager that's there, even if they aren't paying. So we're heading for some really interesting times right now, despite this feeling of everything being okay. That feeling of everything being okay actually scares me to death right now.
Sure.
So all the stars are lining up for something that's beyond our control. And I know we're doing everything we possibly can. I look back to the 70s, when they had stagflation, inflation, everything they did to try to minimize that, saying that oil prices were spiking. Because we had a limited supply of oil, and everything that's being done. I mean, it mimics what's happening now. Yeah. So to me, it seems like one big shell game.
Well, but when you talk about foreclosures, haven't we known this all along? I mean,
Yeah.
leading up, I mean, haven't we known that this was coming at some point? So, you know, where is the, let's continue the conversation moving forward with, you know, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats here, and try to identify how you reconcile a lot of this, and talk more on an advisory level that we're pursuing ourselves.
Sounds like a plan. All right, then we'll talk to you in a little bit.
All right, sounds good. Talk to you later.